right, so it's 3:04 and it looks like we've got a majority of people here.
Yep.
If John, you want to call to order, and then if everybody wants to come off mute so that we can get this ball rolling.
Let's do it. It is 3:04, and we will call to order our Codi meeting for December 13th. And we'll begin today with a roll call attendance. Misha?
Alexander,
Present.
thank you. Barber,
Present.
thank you. Brooks,
Present.
thank you. Kane, Carter, Childress, Eldridge,
Here.
thank you. Lowe,
Here.
thank you. Maxwell,
Here.
thank you. Matheson, Mall,
Here.
thank you. Robertson,
Here.
thank you. Shimon Orr, Simmons,
Here.
thank you. Spangler,
I'm here.
thank you. Villanueva,
Here.
thank you. Welch,
Here.
thank you. And Ziegler had reported absent.
Excellent. So at this time, I'm going to call for a motion to approve October's minutes. Misha sent those. Wait, I'm not going to do that yet because Misha has something she wants to say.
Well, before we make a motion to approve and second minutes, I would like to have an amendment made to the minutes. I did notice that under members, it lists Matheson twice rather than Matheson and Maxwell. So I would like the minutes amended to remedy that.
Do we need to make a motion to do that?
This is Cook. You'll need to just make a motion to approve the minutes with the amendment of that correction that Misha suggested.
Roger that. So if someone would without objection, if someone would like to make that motion.
I motion that we accept the minutes with the revision
Okay.
or as amended. Sorry.
This is Welch. I second it.
All right. And both Eldridge and Welch were at the October meeting. So we are good.
Anyone opposed? Great. So that passes. Minutes are approved. And are we ready to move on to our presentations?
Yes.
Excellent. So at this time, I'd like to welcome our first presentation of the day, Carter Hall from the City of Knoxville Personal Delivery Device stuff. So please take it away. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks, John. Well, hello, guys. Happy to be here to speak with you all. I think it's been a couple of years since I've been able to come and speak to Codi. My name's Carter. I am the Director of Strategic Policy and Programs for the city. I work in the policy department, work as basically policy advisor, manager to chief policy officer and mayor. Amongst other things, part of what I do is anytime we have a new technology or business model wanting to start operating in Knoxville, I'm usually in charge of helping to set both program expectations, but also regulations around those businesses. So for example, last time I came and spoke to Codi was when we were forming our more permanent ordinance for our micromobility program. So think the electric scooters and bike share. As a city, just using that as an example, we wanted to figure out a way where we could have the best of as possible of both worlds, where we have a good program that helps serve folks, but then also understanding that in that case, something on our public right of way, our sidewalks, our streets can impact other people who are using our sidewalks that aren't used on the devices. And obviously members of our disability community are at the top of the concern for that. So I was able to go and consult with this body. I don't know if any members of this are still on the board, but if you are, happy to see you again. I'm happy to say that our since some of the actual feedback that we got from Codi at that time, we implemented into our plans, and we went from having not an inconsiderable amount of complaints about things like scooters and bikes blocking sidewalks, to now, I don't think since we passed our changed plans that I've heard of any direct problems coming to me. Not that it doesn't happen, but we saw a significant decrease. So really appreciate the feedback that we were able to get from Codi a couple of years ago with that. And now I'm coming to you all to talk about a new thing that we're considering, a new technology that, similar to how scooters were at the time, even though with that we've kind of moved those off of the sidewalks in their operating area. This is another thing that I think would impact folks trying to use our sidewalks. And again, similarly, our disability community is kind of at the height of that concern when we think about making sure that Knoxville is accessible to everyone. So I just this is a much less formal presentation than I did with the scooters, mostly because we're still very much in the planning and consideration phase of this. So I want to just come before Codi to really just kind of let you know what we're thinking about this. I know that this has been in the news a little bit lately, so wanted to come and speak to you guys, let you all know where our heads are at with this, let you guys know if you don't know about this issue, what's going on. And then would love just if there is any feedback that you all have an opportunity to give that to me when we make these considerations. So with that, and again, I don't have a formal PowerPoint presentation. There's just not that much information to put up. It's pretty straightforward. But if you all to get what we're talking about, if you guys have been on the University of Tennessee's campus anytime in the last year or so, you've probably noticed the little delivery robots that they now have. They're about the size of like a mini fridge. They're not huge. They're about shoulder width wide, about 3 feet long. They have a big orange flag on them. And basically what they do with the university, it's through a partnership with the volunteer dining, UT's dining for students, their food vendors, and the company that runs the robots, and basically is just a app-based delivery system where a student or somebody on the University of Tennessee campus could order food, and instead of having like a delivery driver bring it to them, these robots do it. So they go to the restaurant where they're picking up the food. Usually these are on campus restaurants, or they are exclusively on campus restaurants. The robot opens up, the worker puts the food in, and then brings it to the student. These robots are not manned, they're autonomous robots. So what they've actually done is gone and mapped out all of the sidewalks, all of the roads on campus, and they know how to navigate that space. They also have real-time sensors so that they're able to avoid people and avoid objects and cars. They know when a road is safe to cross from traffic. They're in timed with the lighting system there. And they're able to operate on UT's campus. And by all accounts, they've been able to be pretty successful on campus. They originally, the university had come to Knox, the city, and had said, that they were initially wanting to actually allow these to go into certain parts of adjacent roads to campus, and to serve students that were off of campus. So think like kind of in the Fort Sanders area, Sorority Village, they would have to get onto city right of way and city sidewalks to be able to go there. And when they brought that to us, we were initially like, hold on, we got to slow down a little bit. You're talking about expanding, and this is something that we hadn't considered up until this time. This was new technology for us. So we just ended up working with the company and with the university to say, like, why don't you guys actually scale this back to just be on campus? We can't regulate campus sidewalks or roads, so this lets you guys do your thing. And if you ever wanted to expand into city street or city sidewalk, we would do it on a case-by-case basis from there. So we entered into an agreement with the university to be able to do that. And that's where we've been since early 2002, is that the company, if they ever wanted to use a city street, they would have to come to us, and we would then say either, yes, this works, this makes sense, that you could say, let these things be on Cumberland, let them be on Lake Avenue, which is next to campus, let them be on a space. Now, I will say for the record that that's not actually happened. They seem totally satisfied right now just being on campus. But that's something that we have the flexibility to where if we ever said, hey, it makes sense for these to be able to go into Fort Sanders or something like that, we would let them do that. Oh yeah, I see that I said 2022, sorry. Good catch, thank you. So that's kind of where we've been at, is just like the only robots have been on UT's campus. But several months ago, we started getting reached out to from some other basically delivery robot companies that were different than the ones on UT's campus, saying, hey, we are looking at expanding into different cities. We're wondering if Knoxville has thought about these. We serve other similar cities, or just we also, as city staff, we pay attention to what's going on in other cities. I had seen that these had sprung up in other cities, especially other mid-sized college towns, starting to get more of these off of their campus. So actually these delivery robots operating in the city, designed more to serve city residents, and deliver food from city restaurants to city residents, beyond just a campus program. So we saw that, and kind of like with the scooters, if we have no regulations, that means that, or if we have not put in place any sort of system or regulations, then that means it's kind of the Wild West for these companies, right? They can come in, they can set up, they can start doing whatever they want, which obviously we would like to avoid as the city. We want to make sure that if we do allow something like the scooters, then we have a thoughtful regulations and ordinances in place to manage that. Or if we don't want it, then we have a regulation in place to say, hey, we actually are going to prohibit these things from operating. So a couple of months ago, we saw the need to go ahead and put forward a moratorium that would prevent any company from coming in and setting up these autonomous delivery robots in Knoxville, and basically would give us 6 months. So the moratorium expires in April of next year, to come up with a decision of what we want to do with the delivery robots, whether or not we want to potentially pilot them and say, hey, maybe there's this could be a good thing. This has potential upsides, study potential downsides, and decide whether we would want to move forward on potentially allowing these in a pilot scenario, or if we would just want to prohibit them for future use in Knoxville. Say, hey, actually the downsides of this way greater than the potential benefits to the citizens of Knoxville. So that's kind of where we are right now. So City Council passed that. So we've had that moratorium in place for, I think, maybe 3 or 4 weeks now. And just as a part of my going and doing research, I'm the one who's leading the research around deciding whether or not we would want to move forward with a pilot or move forward with prohibiting these from operating. I really want to come and talk to this group, get your all's input on it, as well as kind of provide the background that I just did. I will tell you guys where I'm at thinking of things right now. The folks that I have talked to are the University of Tennessee and the company that runs on campus right now. I kind of wanted to figure out what their plans were for the future. And it really sounds like they're just interested in sticking to serving what they call the campus community. So they have no interest in expanding to the city. They really just want to make sure that they're able to serve their student populations. Now, they did say, and I thought that this was interesting, that there are, as UT continues to grow and its student population grows, they're planning on doing some more developments, across Cumberland, like directly on Cumberland. So the university wants to, have some stuff going on along Cumberland, and just adjacent properties to what we currently think of as campus. I mean, it's UT property, but it's just not developed yet. And that might require a delivery robot to go on a city road or cross a city street, use a city sidewalk for a brief moment of time. But nothing like expanding into our downtown area. I've also had the chance to talk to our engineering team and talk about really kind of what the state of our sidewalks are right now. And you think about campus, they typically have very wide sidewalks, 5 feet or wider. They're in really good shape because a lot of them are pretty new. They tend to be, that kind of solid, smooth concrete. And even the older sidewalks tend to be a little bit wider, at least 4 feet wide. That's not necessarily the case for Knoxville. Some of our sidewalks, while the new ones we build at a minimum of 5 feet, the older ones can be 3 to 4 feet wide. Sometimes our sidewalks are not in the best shape in spots, as I'm sure many of us are aware, especially in our Fort Sanders area, some of our older neighborhoods, the sidewalks can be a little cracked and uneven. So that might not be a good fit to have both a delivery robot, which most of them try to just stick to sidewalks, accommodate that, and a person, much less like a person in a wheelchair, right? Like that's going to be a really tough way to have both a 3 foot wide robot and a person in a wheelchair navigate that. And just what in my opinion is really an unacceptable situation would be somebody, whether who's able to walk or is in a wheelchair or has some other mobility disability. If that person is not able to freely move around the city because there's a robot blocking their way, like that's a problem. Then that's not an acceptable situation. So making sure that if they were operating, that there would not be a scenario where that would happen. I think for a lot of people, the obvious area where a company would come in, because this probably wouldn't be the same company that's operating on campus. If robots came in, downtown seems like an obvious area for a lot of people. So I talked to, our engineering department about our downtown sidewalks. And the reality is, while those are a little bit wider than some of our neighborhood sidewalks, we have a lot of things like tree cutouts, patios for businesses that go into the sidewalk. So while you might have down Gay Street, the sidewalk is 5 or 6 feet wide. In some spots, it gets to 3 feet wide. At the narrowest because of, like I said, light posts, patios, things like that. And obviously when your downtown area gets really busy, it's already really hard to move around, much less if there's like a robot trying to get through. I will say, like, with our experience, just seeing, talking to the companies, but then also seeing what's gone on with the university, the robots tend to work really well. There's never been an instance of somebody getting hurt from one of the robots running into somebody. They know to wait until somebody's passed through to go through an area. But still, wanting to avoid clutter is really important to us. So I will go ahead and say to you all, hopefully you don't run and go and tell, one of these companies, but we are definitely, I am not expecting to move forward with a pilot of these. I don't think that for most of our sidewalks, this makes sense. I think that, if we had 7 foot wide sidewalks everywhere, then maybe it would make sense. And if they were in all really good condition, then it would make sense. But I think there's just not enough of an area where, it would make market sense for one of these companies to deploy that also would accommodate, pedestrians and the robots. So there's just not really, even in some of our more commercial areas, our Sevier Avenue, North Central, places like that, there's still is not quite enough density for these things to operate. So I think that they would really have to stay in the downtown area. And as I just mentioned, I just don't really see a scenario where our infrastructure is super accommodating for people to be using our sidewalks, especially when you think of like a busy Friday night in the summer when Gay Street is backed down from people outside of like Cruz Farms, right? Like that sidewalk gets super busy and super congested. Add in the mix, like little robots trying to get around, just doesn't really seem to be a good fit to me. but I do think that, we want to see if there's an opportunity to maintain the flexibility that we have now to where we can be accommodating of the UT program to say like, hey, maybe it does make sense that we would allow for uh, a robot to go in and just use, a brief piece of city right of way or city sidewalk to get to somewhere else adjacent to campus. Maintain that flexibility, but again, probably not moving forward with like a bigger program that would allow these throughout downtown. Especially considering the cities that have moved forward with banning these, San Francisco and Toronto, especially. Relevantly to this group, like Toronto prohibited delivery robots in their city specifically because of disability concerns and because of accessibility concerns for the sidewalks and people with disabilities. So, other cities that, and Toronto actually had these launched before in their city. And then after, oops, sorry, my light just turned off. And so they're an example of a city that actually had these things running around everywhere on their sidewalks, and then this was an issue for members of their disability community, so they actually moved to prohibit them after that. So there's not a great track record of these things serving cities in a way that really works for everybody. So just want to let you know that that's kind of where my head is at right now with that. I'm happy to hear from folks at this point, like, hey, yeah, we think that this does actually make sense. Like maybe there are some considerations that I don't have of why delivery robots are of interest to some of you all, and you would want to see them here, and you think that actually I should be looking at allowing them and figuring out a way that it would work. I would also appreciate hearing if you think, hey, yeah, no, I don't think that these are a good idea. So at this time, I think that's about all the information I have to give you all. Would love to hear any feedback that you have or any considerations that you think that the policy department should be taking into consideration at this time, or any other concerns.
Thank you, Carter. I really appreciate you coming in, and I really appreciate you getting so far out ahead of this that you didn't wait till it was a major issue, but you're really doing your homework. That really is encouraging. Just a couple things. I know Cook and Zubak want to say something, but just a couple things real quick. The first is I also have a concern of not only the mobility and accessibility question, but I also have a concern that this kind of puts a bunch of people out of work, potentially Uber drivers and those kind of delivery folks. But and then the other thing is maybe is there like a time thing where maybe these could function during the day at lunch downtown, but not in the evenings when the sidewalks are so congested?
We definitely, I think, would have the ability to put time parameters on if we wanted to move forward with allowing them. We do that with the micromobility program. So like for the scooters, for example, like they have to shut off between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Part of that is we don't always want people, using them in some of like the later hours of the evening. But the main reason for that breaking period is it allows us, that's the intended period for those operators to go and like collect all the devices and reorganize them and put them where they need to be for the next day. So that's just an example of like we have with a similar program instituted time caps. So that's something that I think we would imagine doing for this. The economic concern is a really real one for sure. My sort of chief concern, admittedly, is the kind of infrastructure use of this. But I do think while on one hand, we want to make sure that we're not harming people inadvertently economically. I do think generally in some of like the businesses that would be being served don't already do delivery. So while it could, the sort of like Grubhub driver, Uber Eats driver, I don't even know if those companies are here, but if they are, that's one of those things where look, we have considered that as well. So and that's probably a check in the like concern box, right? Like in the pros, we think of traffic congestion. It's great if there's one less car on the road that's doing deliveries. There's obviously a person earning a wage that's attached to that car that we have to think of. But yeah, that's something that we've thought of as well.
Great. Stephanie?
When I was on campus a number of months ago, I had no idea these things were out there. I'm driving. You have to watch so carefully for pedestrians and not necessarily near the crosswalks, if you catch my drift. And then I see this white, hard plastic. I thought it was like a old, boom box or something. I had no idea what it was. I'm like, what is that? Strolling along the sidewalk unaccompanied. And then figured it out after I saw some of the news information and everything. And so I was very intrigued. It made me think, very, very Jetsons type of thing. And if you're like me, when we were kids and we saw the Jetsons, we never ever thought we would see that kind of technology. And now it's like creeping in on us. It's kind of odd. But I guess a couple of questions that I had was, are these, if you know, Carter, are these kind of created sort of like the remote vacuums, like the Roombas and things, where after so long they automatically go home to their home base or charging station? And I guess my other question is, are they somehow programmed so that there's absolutely no way they could get into the roadways? Or has there been a situation where, one gets into conflict with vehicular traffic?
Sure. Those are two really good questions, Stephanie. So for the first question on if they go home, so that is actually a good sort of analogy. So they do have like kind of home bases where they all go back to, for the sake of or for the example of campus, they go back to the student union where there's like that's where a lot of the food is that they pick up. So they'll go back. So if you go by the student union, like drive outside of it, you can see them out there. Usually there's like 12 or 15. I'll say the university right now has 56 robots that they operate at any given time. So they'll all go back there for charging, and that's also just kind of where they go generally. And that's actually a piece of or another part of why, I think through maybe this isn't like a great bit, is that they generally need a hub to go back to. And I don't know that there's an established obvious place where that makes sense here. So that's something else that we were thinking through. And where it's not exactly like a Roomba, and this kind of feeds into the next question that you had, is that they are similar to a Roomba actually, in that a Roomba will like map your house, right? When it goes out, it will like kind of drive around, like bump into stuff, and then kind of figure out, okay, like once it bumps into something, it knows and it memorizes that there's a wall there or a lamp or like a TV stand, and will know. The only difference with these is they do that mapping ahead of time. So somebody actually will walk with one of the robots and kind of teach it where all the stuff is, including, hey, this sidewalk has a crack in it. Let's avoid this sidewalk. Or there's a curb here. They actually can't go up curbs. So there's a curb here. Just know in the future that you're going to have to go up it. So it'll walk while it does all that mapping. But they are a lot more advanced than something like a Roomba, where they actually have those like screens in the front that do that constant scanning to know, oh, there's a person right in front of me, I need to stop, there's a drop off, or there's something in the way. And one thing that is cool about them, so like let's say there's something that's fallen over in the sidewalk and is obstructing the sidewalk, let's say like a cone or something. If one of those robots senses that there's an obstruction in the sidewalk, it will tell all of the other ones that obstruction is there, and so they all know to avoid that in the future. So that's pretty cool. I think that that's a good safety feature that they have built in. It just avoids compiling of them on one obstruction. In terms of avoiding the roads, because of that mapping beforehand, they know where all of the crosswalks are, and they use the crosswalks with everybody else. And they know with street lights and with timing when not to cross to avoid traffic. It could be the case that if one was going and was like acting like a pedestrian and was crossing a road when it was supposed to, and you had a careless driver, could potentially crash into one. Although I will say, like talking to the UT, they've never had a case of that happening. And so, and incidents in general have been very minimum. The only problems that they've had is with vandalism and college students being college students and wanting to like mess with the robots, but that's really the only problems that they've had. They've never had one, like I said, run into anybody. They've never had one cause any injury. They've never had one get into a car accident. So our concern with these is really not is not so much safety. We think that they are really safe and they work the way that they're supposed to. It's just they need an environment where they would work well. And instead of and we think that we can make that call instead of a company coming in and being like, well, let's try it, and then it doesn't go well. Well, we're the ones as the city who have to suffer the consequences if it doesn't go well. So that's kind of where we're at with this.
This is Eldridge. I was just going to say one of the biggest gating factors, and you mentioned it, having lived downtown and trying to navigate a scooter between the Medical Arts Building up to YMCA on Locust Street. There are so many places and infrastructure. The whole issue of infrastructure being able to take care of these things or enable them to navigate successfully. There's some place where they couldn't go. If there wasn't a soul near, they wouldn't be able to do it. And so, I mean, you mentioned they can map out, go here, but don't go there. And I guess that'll work out. But that's a big deal. I know.
Yeah.
Zubak?
Yes, I have several initial thoughts, and I've got my highlighter so I can cross them off as I go along. I've been furiously writing a post-it. So first of all, I had also written down daytime on here. I do believe that daytime only hours are going to be integral to making sure this works correctly. And my suggestion is that the cutoff is at 3 p.m., which is before afternoon traffic, and that it doesn't begin until 9 a.m., which is after morning traffic, to prevent a lot of the issues with potential pedestrians as well as cars. One other thing is I would limit it to the downtown and Fort Sanders area rather than trying to extend it past that, especially with suburban sprawling. I would also be interested in knowing the insurance / liability parameters for this, simply because also of a video that I saw that was circulating that was taken during a UT football game where one of the delivery robots kind of got involved with the UT band that was making its way down the sidewalk. And so that brings me to my next one, right of way robots versus people with disabilities, such as, is it going to recognize and avert somebody in a wheelchair with a walker with a cane? One comment I wanted to make is that if sidewalk repairs are put into place because of potential for robots, that's only going to help people with disabilities as well as additional sidewalks, curb cuts, etc. Let's see what else I have on here. Barbara was talking about Uber and taking away from those drivers and tipping those drivers. But on the flip side, knowing myself, there are times when I can order a sandwich, but I can't necessarily order a sandwich and tip a driver. So I don't. And so there is a flip side to that, that people that may be watching their money will be able to order delivery service. Additional thoughts is, if you would like more involved thoughts from Codi on this, because this has not been on place anywhere in our city other than campus, and most of us aren't there on a regular basis. What I'd like to do is talk to all of the groups, and I can report back to you by mid-February on it, other than what we discussed today. And then, because the moratorium ends in April, I would love to have you back, even if briefly, just in May, to report on what progress has been made since then.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to come back. You know, whenever you'll have me, love to come.
Perfect.
Those are all really good suggestions. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think trying to go through and think for the ones the daytime hours, yeah, I think generally those two tend to be a little bit safer. Insurance liability is something that we would require. We do require that for not only do we require liability insurance from, and I know I reference the scooters a lot, they tend to be like our clearest kind of a net parallel program where we had a moratorium and then a pilot and then a more permanent thing. So they're very similar foundation of what we're basing off of. There's my lights again. So we do require not only liability insurance from the scooter companies, but they have to do a $5,000 infrastructure bond with us, so that if hypothetically any infrastructure were harmed from the scooters, then they're basically the ones paying for those repairs. So it would be like a similar sort of system.
Okay, do you think that there would be any way, let's say it was a person in a wheelchair versus a robot, the robot won. Is there video on board the robot in order to prove who was at fault so there wouldn't be litigation from the person in a wheelchair or the company that had the robots? Because that's going to be
dash cam cooler is
That's
what
a
you're
good
asking
question.
about.
I don't know if they do have cameras on them or if it's just a sensor or if it's like a sensor and a camera. But that's a good thought. I mean, I will say, like, honestly, I think that if that were to happen, that would not necessarily be the city's involved. Like the city would not necessarily be involved in that. Even though we would be allowing them to be on the city sidewalk, we would have indemnification to say like, hey, like robot company, you are the ones who are at fault here. You are the ones who got to figure that out.
Okay, so my piggyback onto that, and then we'll go to Welch. I know she's been waiting patiently. If there is not a video camera on board the robot, since we are Council for Disability Issues, and that would be a major issue for people with disabilities, regardless of who the litigation would be towards, I would recommend limiting it to the streets that may have camera visuals available.
Yeah, it's a great thought. Thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah, Welch, you're up.
Hey, yeah, I had a question to kind of piggyback back on the mapping. You said it mapped beforehand. What about like closure of roads, like during construction, or like a few years back, there was the Gay Street Bridge was not the Gay Street, but the Henley Street Bridge was closed, or one of those bridges was closed. And the GPS, like when you did MapQuest, if you didn't know it was closed, it would take you to that area. So I was just curious, any kind of construction in areas where roads are closed, how would that robot sense that, or would it know?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We would, any road closures, and this is what we'd have to do if we had something around campus with the UT program, is basically we would let them know, like, hey, this road is going to be closed, and they would pre-program that. Although with any road closure, right, we have signs, we have like barriers that would prevent someone going down the road. So theoretically, the robot would be able to sense like, hey, I can't go down this road because there's stuff blocking the road. Although that being said, oftentimes we will close a road but not a sidewalk, or if we have a sign up, even if the sidewalk is closed, we just close it. We just have the sign in the road. So that is a good point, that we would have to make sure that all road closures were communicated to them. And hypothetically, that's something that we would be able to do. But
I could kind of see where a road closure, you could still use the sidewalk, but I was just kind of thinking outside the box there.
But not always. In fact, I think for a lot of our road closures, you can't use the sidewalk because the construction people are using the sidewalk, or they don't want to risk somebody getting hurt by walking on the sidewalk next to construction. So it's a good thought for sure.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Does anybody else have questions or comments for Mr. Hall? Cook?
Mr. Hall, are you kind of looking for input, whether it's in support or requesting that the city like not move forward with this, or I'm just considering what the city's policy team is looking for. I would like to make sure that Codi provides you with that.
Yeah, thank you. Really at this point, just feedback is the main thing. We have no real desired outcome at this time for this. Just really, like I said, anytime, at least, for us, anytime we do something that's going to impact sidewalk usage, I always think it's really important to come and talk to Codi. So this is a part of that. I will put in case people don't have it, my email in the chat, but so if you have any thoughts, like there's no formal, there is no at this time, like any formal, like way that we're collecting feedback. But if anybody has any thoughts or concerns, you obviously, I hope that you feel free to say them now, but you can also just email me at any time and say, hey, I'm a member of Codi, you came and spoke, like I thought about it a little bit, and this is just something I wanted to share with you.
Well, I'll go ahead and share since my box is yellow.
Got it.
As a Knoxvilleian, I think it's a really cool, 21st, 23rd century idea. But as a person with a disability, when there is enough obstacle, if you will, in the public right of way, just from sidewalks and sandwich boards and tables and chairs and other pedestrians and everything else, I would not probably love seeing those come to Knoxville personally, but I'm just one person.
Understood. Thank you. I get it.
Zuback?
Yes, what I hope is my last initial thought on this. If they do expand past UT, or if there is any room to talk to UT, I believe that they should be equipped with audible sounds of some sort for those that may be blind or have visual disabilities.
That's actually a good point, because I do know that they have audio capabilities, but I don't know that they're anything that's like directly letting people with visual disabilities know that they're there. I know that they make little sounds and jingles when they deliver your food to you, but I don't know that there's anything that would say like, hey, just so you know, I'm here. Which is something that, like I said, since they're not operating in city right of way, the city doesn't really have very much purview over the university program. But if it's something where if we said, hey, like we would allow these to operate on city right of way, but they have to, then we would have some leverage to say like, hey, we have some things that we would want you to do to be more accommodating to people with disabilities. So that's maybe
Perfect.
a way for us to have a little bit of leverage over them. That's a really good point. Thank you.
Awesome. Does anybody else have questions or comments? Okay.
Cool. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate you all letting me come on and speak to you again.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Carter.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and drop off. But as mentioned, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is in the chat.
Excellent. Thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you all. Have a good rest of your meeting.
All
You
righty.
too.
Okay, that was great. At this time, we're going to move on to member advocacy and information. And so we're going to begin with Simmons. Simmons, are you still on with us?
Yes, I am. So what'd you want from me? No, I'm kidding. I don't get 2 calls a month. They're gonna both come today, I guess. Yeah, actually I'm speaking, I like to stay in my own lane, spinal cord injury advocacy. And I might, it seems like adding too much explaining, but to kind of give some context to it. When I was in my undergrad, 2014, I mean, to my grad, 2014 to 2016, a young lady named Temple Grandin came in to speak, and had an opportunity to listen to her speak, and she was speaking about advocacy for autism. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with autism, but they have it on the spectrum. Asperger's is pretty much the top functioning. We've probably all interacted with some people that had a form of autism and never knew they had autism. So she made a comment, and I think it has to do with spinal cord patients as well. She said, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. And the way I kind of viewed it was, if you went to the hardware store and you looked at the paint chips, and the lightest colored paint chips would be your Asperger's, or the higher, they're not touched as deeply. And then as those paint chips get a little darker, then that starts to be a higher impact on this person's ability to function and problems they may have. So when you get to a spinal cord injury, very similar. Go back to those paint chips. We've got 33 vertebrae in the spinal cord. So we're going to start down at the bottom by your tailbone of the coccyx. So you got the coccyx, the sacrum, the lumbar, the thoracic, and then the cervical. Same thing with those paint chips. If you start down there at the tailbone, they're light colored. And each vertebrae you go up, you're going to lose something. And each vertebrae you go up, that paint chip's going to be a little darker. I think a lot of people probably think spinal cord injury. Yeah, I've got a friend that's got a spinal cord injury, and it breaks us into two groups: paraplegics, quadriplegics. Manual wheelchair, a lot of times power wheelchair, but then you've got incomplete and complete. So if you're not familiar with that, a complete means you have no voluntary movement or sensation below your injury level. Incomplete, you might be able to move your leg or whatever, hands. It helps tremendously. Now, I don't know if Stephanie wants to self-disclose what her injury level is. I was affected at C5, C6, and C7. The bulk of it being a transected spinal cord at C6 and C7. So when you talk about advocacy, there are a number of groups. Maybe all of you probably heard of the Christopher Reeves organization. You've got the National Spinal Cord Injury Association, Spinal Cord Injury Association of America. There's a number of them, and the Christopher Reeves, they'll actually come straight out and tell you they're looking to cure spinal cord injuries, but they have a lot of supportive groups. So when you advocate, Voc Rehab is fantastic for advocating, because they're centered around work. But if you have an injury with a spinal cord injury, it's on set. So depending on where you're at in life as to how much you need. I was 48 when I was injured. Like I said, mine was fairly high injury. Christopher Reeves was a C2. I'm C5, 6, 7. You get up to C2 and C1, that's even C3 and C4 is not a lot of fun. Stephanie, you have a question?
C1 is brain stem.
Yeah,
Brain stem.
it's up
and
in the
that's
curve.
but since you opened the door, I do not mind at all to share. I also had a spinal cord injury, 1987, and I am a T10 or thoracic 10 incomplete para.
Thank you. So the amount of to me, I have volunteered at Patricia Neal since 2012 with newly injured spinal cord patients and their families, because it affects the entire family and stuff when this happens. But a lot of them, I guess, Stephanie say, you got to do a lot of advocating for yourself, even in the medical model. With my injury, I can move my wrist, but I can't move any of my fingers. So people with my level of injury will pick stuff up through tenodesis, and if you just held your hand out limp and just pulled it back, you'll notice your thumb will go towards your index finger. Well, that's fine if you pick it up. You're not picking up anything heavy with tenodesis. You can't do any exercising. And when I was at Patricia Neal, they were having me fitted for this stainless steel contraption that when I cocked my wrist back, it would lock and it would hold. You could hit a button and it could release it. So I was fortunate enough to go to Shepherd Center in Atlanta. And when I was getting fitted for this stainless steel contraption, I'm asking people, well, what about tendon transfers? They really weren't. I don't know that they didn't know about it, but they didn't really do it. Well, I did some research on my own. Tennessee Orthopedics, it's not an old injury. So a key pinch, key pinch tendon transfer, which ties my thumb into my wrist. So when I pull my thumb back, it hits on my index finger, my wrist back, hits on my index finger, and I can pick up 4-pound bag of Epsom salt, pick it up off the bottom shelf, lift it up, and set it over into my lap. Huge factor having an opposing thumb. But when you start to meet with people, when you start about advocacy, you really, to me, it's almost like either you got somebody that reaches them through OT, PT, or I always believed when I went in and talked to somebody, they could have the best doctors, they could have fantastic therapists, but the transfer of information, because I never met with anybody whose injury level was worse than mine. Most of them were T injuries, and they would, and I was old, like I said, 48. A lot of these young men and women I'm meeting in their 20s to 26, 27. I do not know that I would have handled my injury at 18 like I did at 48. I'm almost positive I would. But eventually you got to come around to it one way or another. So when I go to meet people, I try to tell them things like, when I was injured, my arms were up like this. They pull my arms down through like with your biceps taking over in contraction right up here. They had me on the trach with a ventilator to help breathe, a number of things. And the doctor, one of the doctors at UT while I was still in intensive care, told my mom, "You're dealing with another Christopher Reeves. That's the best it's going to get." And I would tell people when I came in, that's what the doctors told me. And when I came in to talk to them, I said, that said and done, I drove myself to meet with you today, and I've got a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling. So although they can look at C5, C6, C7, they've got, mathematically, here's probably what's going to happen, but they're wrong all the time. The main thing you need to do is start preparing, like it's not good, like this is the best it's going to get. And if you come out better, that's fine. I said, but you don't want to waste your time in therapy with what all you lost. And it's a tough one. But when it comes to the advocacy, I still, throughout my injury, there's a couple of support groups that are on Facebook. Like I said, there's a whole bunch of information. But if you can't get somebody that's wanting to reach out and get it, you really can't do it. It's great that they've got these organizations that are doing it, but in my opinion, it comes down to the individual. They've got to make a decision like, hey, I wanted to, like I said, somebody told me about Voc Rehab. They can't force Voc Rehab on me. I have to go talk to Voc Rehab, tell them what, and they're really good then at helping you do it. That's advocate for yourself. There's combination of somebody advocating on your behalf, because KAEC, another good example. They find people with disabilities, they advocate on their behalf, and these people are saying, hey, I want to go to work. I think I can do something. And that's a group that here locally with grassroots stuff goes to different businesses. So the advocacy to me, when you look at the nationwide stuff, that's great, but it's really the grassroots organizations in each community, in my humble opinion, that benefit people the most on a number of different, not just spinal cord injuries, but Down syndrome, autism, the individual groups that get out and touch individuals. It really comes down to people again. And to me, in my opinion, that's where the best advocacy comes from. It's when people work with people instead of waiting for the national organizations to take it. John, you ought to be able to appreciate this one. You see a guy leaning on the shovel. The Lord's not expecting you to pray for a hole to get dug. That's kind of the way I look at it with advocacy. If you're not willing and you're not wanting to, and again, it takes time. Everybody's got to come to their injury with an onset, especially. Everybody, I can see I've got people riveting. John's already on it. So that's my humble take on it. I think the local organizations and the individuals that are working to help move things forward, help the people as they're struggling to find their new normal. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Simmons. That was really good. Anybody have any questions or thoughts for Joel? And Joel, that yawn was not aimed at you. It's just been a long day.
I was kidding. I knew I'm very engaging. I wouldn't have taken that personal. All right,
This is
thank you for your
small.
time.
This is small. I just wanted to say thank you, Joel, for sharing that information.
You're welcome, Tanya. You could be yawning. I don't know.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, my mind jumped blank. Good, go. I was gonna say, the hard thing is that, I don't know why, coming out of like the marketing and all that good stuff, where you have, the more people you can reach, one message, yada, yada, yada. And that's kind of the mentality. But I realize that more and more and more, it's still looking somebody in the eyeball, saying, okay, who are you? Because everybody's situation is completely different. Why? I don't know. My injury affects me in a way that's really different than anybody else, and theirs is mine, etc. And it's something you have to realize. Of course, the first realization is that everybody's injury is horrible for them, meaning that never like, well, it could have been worse, or you're better or worse than somebody else. It's like, I don't care. What's going on with me is messing me up. And it's not a selfish thing. It's just a realization that you can't pinpoint people or pigeonhole into different things. Everybody's in their own situation.
Yeah, thanks, Eldridge. Anybody got anything else for Joel? All right, let's move on. Spangler, what you got for us?
Probably not a lot, but as you guys know, I work for the Tennessee Disability Coalition. I'm a pretty new employee. Recently, we had a training it was in November. We had a training in Nashville. That's where our home office is. And I was able to learn about some of the other stuff that Tennessee Disability Coalition does that I was not aware of. So I just kind of wanted to share those things with you guys. One of the things that we do is Disability Day on the Hill. I've never been to it. I'm excited to go this year. Tennessee Disability Coalition is very involved with it. They've got a thing on their website. If you're interested in disability policy, you can text teamwork to 72690 and you will get text alerts on disability policy that they're working on in the House right now. We also do Disability Advocacy Day. It's on March 11th. I think that would be something good for Codi to be involved in. As you know, we've got the disability scorecard. We had a gentleman from Disability Coalition come and speak on it. We are an affiliate of the Southeast ADA Center. We have Workable TN. That is my department. What I do, I'm a benefits analyst, and I do presentations helping people understand how working affects their Social Security benefits. Under the Workable TN logo, we also have CWICs. Those are people that can actually pull your stuff from Social Security and do an individualized counseling with you. We have Brain Links. Brain Links brings together professionals to recognize the unique nature of brain injury and improve services for survivors of traumatic brain injury. We also have Family Voices. I'm not sure if you guys know Molly Ridgway Anderson. She is currently working for our Family Voices. And what they do is they support families. They put families together of children with special health care needs, chronic illness, or disability. So kind of like a support group so families can learn from each other, learn different resources, that kind of thing. We even have a small grants program. It's biannual, and they award small grants of up to $10,000. If you want to go on the Tennessee Disability Coalition website, you can read about all the different grants they've awarded. They run the gamut from teaching sex ed to people with disabilities to modifying houses. There's all kinds of different stuff that they do. And then we have Tennessee Business for the Better, and it recognizes businesses for their efforts to promote inclusivity. And Stephanie can probably answer some questions about Tennessee Disability Coalition too, because she sits on our board and she's been there a while. That's all I have.
I was just gonna suggest that if folks aren't already a member, you can certainly become a member of the Tennessee Disability Coalition as an individual. It's not a whole lot, is it, Stacy? I can't remember, 25, $30 or something like that.
You know, I honestly don't know, Stephanie.
Oh,
I didn't know they had independent. I mean, I knew they had a board, but I didn't know just anybody could be a member of it.
yes, my understanding is that yes, you can. You know, the geese formation that has been their logo, if you will, for forever. So, I mean, that's the whole point of the Tennessee Disability Coalition. Any person with or without disability interested in learning more and advocating for individuals with disabilities can be a member. And that's one of the beauties of it, I think, is there's a whole lot of strength in numbers. And to your point about, oh goodness, you said it's on, Disability Advocacy Day, 3/11/24. That's one of the reasons we bought our blue Codi shirts, so that on that day, we all have the blue represented. And that's when the pedestrian bridge from downtown across to the convention center is lit up blue.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that's what it was. I knew that they did that. I just didn't.
Yes,
I was kind of thinking it was for autism because blue's autism color.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks. That was a great shout out for the coalition.
This is Maul. Stacy or Stephanie could answer this, I guess. When is Disability Day on the Hill?
I do not know when it is for 2024.
Okay.
I want to say maybe in April.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is Cook. Cook can't answer that definitively either, but she can say that when we are done here, I'm going to find the links and share it with y'all so that we can, all of you guys need to be on the email update newsletter thing. They put out an amazing regular publication on all of the state's legislation and how it impacts disability issues or policy. And only recently I saw one about the upcoming budget that are, they're watch dogs, and they watch everything that the state does and then disseminates that information so that you can weigh in on the good or the bad.
This is Simmons. I just looked it up. You can join the Tennessee Disability Coalition for $25. That's what the individual fee is.
Very cool. Anybody got anything else on that? Okay, let's move on to committee reports. We're going to start with bylaws, and that's going to be Zubek.
All right. So bylaws did not meet. We are still waiting on George Shields with City of Knoxville Law Department to separate the bylaws into the two documents, which will include an overarching document, which will not change often, and then another that Codi may change with approval of the mayor.
Excellent. Moving right along to membership, also Zubek.
They met on December 6, 2023, and Spangler agreed to be the secretary. The vote for meetings to be every other month did pass. We briefly discussed the current absences of members, but no action is needed as of yet. There are 3 spots open on Codi, and members were asked to provide nominations by no later than the February meeting. I'm also going to ask all of you to also send in any nominations you have to me by the time Codi meets in February. Right now, Dr. Kelly Martin of YMCA and Cheryl McCormick, who is retired from Peninsula, may be submitting nominations for membership. And a lot of you did meet Kelly Martin at the Codi Social. Cook.
I apologize for stepping back one issue on the agenda, but since we spoke of the Disability Coalition, I went and looked at my last email, and I just want to share it with y'all because here's the question. Happen to know anybody that would be willing to share their story in regard to the 2023 Disability Scorecard? The more compelling or egregious the story, the better. We will put in the back, let's see, they can insert that story into the Disability Coalition scorecard. If you remember, this is when Tom just can't right now speak his last name.
Jablowski.
Thank you. Came and presented a few months ago on that disability scorecard. It was the first ever put out for the state of Tennessee. So anybody who is interested and able to speak in front of the media or to the media, please let Misha or myself know, because this would be another good way to help Tennessee Disability Coalition do what they do, which ultimately helps all Tennesseans with disabilities.
Okay. Anything else on that before we move along? Okay, transportation, Welch.
And mute myself there. Yes, we met this week on December 11th, sorry. December the 11th, we met Monday. We had a few bullet points we covered. There is no real updates with the CAT Reimagined for the CAT bus system. They're plugging in data right now, and they did launch mobile tickets where you can buy your bus tickets online, but they are also doing both cash and the mobile app. So far, so good. That's going. And their bus stop improvement is on delay until CAT Reimagine gets launched in the summer, so they can work on the bus stop improvements alongside of that. We talked about the vehicle-free Gay Street. If you haven't been downtown during the weekends that they have made Friday and Saturdays vehicle-free, please, I think this is the last weekend that they will be doing that as a pilot project. We talked about some comments that have been sent in, and Misha went over those and shared those, and then she's going to be sending those into the mayor as well. There was some comments mentioned that during those times that the street is closed to vehicle free, that there need to be more family friendly activities and more activities in general, because it seems like that block of area that's blocked off there's more restaurants and bars in that area. So we did discuss that, what the pilot could look like. Is it going to move around? What are some pros and cons of that? And then the other thing we discussed was the downtown parking study. Back in November, I got an email, and general public got that email, and there was a survey enclosed. However, when you click on it, it says survey closed. So, Misha, have you heard back from Bike Knoxville at all?
I did hear back from her this morning. I actually invited her to the February transportation meeting. She does
Okay.
not have the results of the study yet. I'm hoping that she will have them by February. She did, however, report that the company that is gathering the survey results said that we had great responses to it in terms of the number.
Okay, that's good. Misha had reached out to them because since the survey was closed, it was a rather short time period, so we needed some clarity on that. So thank you for that update, Misha. And then as we were talking about a few other things and getting information about the vehicle-free Gay Street, the question arose that I wanted Misha to ask Stephanie, and she may be able to answer that now. If not, she can get back to us. How often is a sidewalk study done? And I know I was kind of thinking about that when Carter was here too. So we looked back and looks like maybe it's every couple of years. So Misha, is there Stephanie, can you comment on that, or should we just leave that for later?
I can comment on that, but I don't know with what degree of
Like,
Complete answer I have. I know that there was a study done in, pretty sure it was 2021.
mhm.
And if I'm not mistaken, Karen McKeon from the engineering department, she shared that. And am I misremembering that, Misha? She shared that study and then came to a transportation committee meeting and spoke about that. But now there, sometimes it depends on if it's project specific or a new area we're going to go into. Say, maybe an example would be the multi-use stadium. Perhaps there would be sidewalk studying going on alongside that project to see what's working, what's able to stay there once the stadium is built, what needs to be either rerouted, closed, changed, fixed, whatnot. But see, I will be happy to get you a more definitive answer. I don't know that it happens like every so many years, or if it's need based, kind of like with the cat bus stop and the cat reimagined, that sort of thing. I know there's inventory information about the city's sidewalks, but how often that's updated, I don't know. So I will do my best to try to find that out.
I am aware that it's on the city website, and Misha shared that link during our meeting. I
Okay.
was just concerned, like, if we run across a major crack or a major issue, and I believe Misha also referenced that we could call 311.
You can always call 311. And another amazing opportunity is to download the My Knoxville app, because when you're out and about, if you're like me, you're on your way from point A to point B, and if you stub a toe or run into an obstacle or something, you notice it then, but then by the time you've gotten to your parking spot or whatever, you could have forgotten it. With the My Knoxville app, you can snap a picture of your concern or your kudos, and it will automatically go into the 311 system. And let me explain, sidewalks, anybody could encounter an issue or problem with a sidewalk. But if you encounter a problem with a sidewalk that has to do with accessibility, it's reducing accessibility, or you get to a part and there's one little concrete section missing, all of that, please note that when you snap that picture, and be as specific as you can with location. Say, if it's, just for instance, if it's downtown on Gay Street and you can say it's in front of Ham and Goodies, then what ultimately happens is 311 collects this information, and then it's distributed to the appropriate responsible department, in this case engineering. And engineering have staff that can go out and they will review the area, they will rate it. There's a priority ranking system, and then based on their priority, they get put into the hopper for fix, or has to go into a sidewalk, a larger sidewalk project, if depending on the issue, if it's something small to be done sooner in-house, or if it has to go into something larger as a part of a contract, that kind of thing. But I highly recommend, that is the absolute quickest and best way to give information to the city, My Knoxville app, and try to be as specific as you can.
Thank you, Stephanie, because that was my thing. Because a lot of the things going on with whether it's a robot or whether it's closing a road closure, and then you have to walk longer or whatever you have to do because you're changing your regular route if there's some kind of obstruction. How quickly could it be fixed? But I guess if you're reporting it and it's a higher priority, maybe it will get fixed quicker. So thank you so much. That's all I have for transportation.
Okay. I'd like to make a comment. This is Zubak. Based on what I've gleaned off City of Knoxville website, it seems like our previous sidewalk study that was prior to 2021 was around 2010. There was mention of replacing a few sidewalks and a brief study in 2015. And then I believe the one that came out in 2021 was discussed during the 2017-18 budget cycle. So it seems to be around every 10 years or so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Grants, Zubak. What you miss?
Great. Grants met on October 18th and voted to dissolve as progress had ceased being made and deadlines were fast approaching.
Okay, moving to strategic plan group reports, starting with livability. That's Mole.
This is Maul. I'm going to defer to our secretary of that committee, Karen Lowe.
This is Lo. Yeah, I had my notes handy, so I told Kanya I'd do it. We did meet on November 1st because we have switched to the every other month. What we discussed was Miss Stacy Spangler and Nancy Carter did complete a accessible survey. It was both of their first times. Unfortunately, nobody who had done one was able to go with them. They did go to South Coast Pizza off of Sevier Avenue. They did turn in the completed survey to Misha, but we went over as a group on some of the questions just to clarify a few points. But they still received a passing score overall, and they will get a letter and a window clean. I don't know if that's been done yet. Misha was going to work on that part. We also discussed trying to get more accessible surveys done because we have kind of just stopped forward progression. And I know Miss Lauren Ziegler and Jackson Kane were going to try and sign up to do some surveys. I also don't know if that actually happened, but that was pretty much the whole meeting.
Zubak.
So South Coast Pizza has received their packet. For November, it was Kane, Matheson, and Spangler. Kane did complete one. And then for December, it was supposed to be Childress.
Okay. Everybody go eat South Coast Pizza also because their pizza is delicious. Going back just real quick, Cook, did you have something to say about grants?
I did, but that was then and I forgot. Sorry. What? It wasn't uber important, or I probably would have jotted a note. I'm sorry. It left me.
Well, I missed you, so that's my fault.
That's okay. I think I was just gonna say thank you guys for considering that. I think it was an amazing idea, great opportunity to collaborate with the Urban League and some other fabulous community partners. But just to be fair to all involved, with all things else going on, I think it was the right call to maybe just try it again another time.
Great. All right. Thank you for that, Cook. Moving on to new business, I'm going to turn it over to Zubak.
I'm going to defer back to Joel Simmons for Universal Design.
So,
We didn't meet last month.
You met on November 6th.
Oh, yeah, we met on November 6th. I forgot. I've been drinking since then.
Would you like me to take it, Simmons?
Yeah, I didn't receive it. Oh, let me see if I can remember back what we. Yeah, go ahead and take it over there, Zubak.
Okay, we discussed how to collect housing information to inform members on what the current market needs will be in 2024. We also discussed the NSKIP housing complex and what affordable and accessible mean for that complex, as well as free Gay Street initiative and gathering feedback on that for Mayor Kincannon.
This is Simmons. None of this sounds familiar to me. Was I at this meeting?
you were. I was there. You led the meeting, Simmons.
It's all coming back to me now. Go ahead, Cook.
Cook.
I was going to ask Misha to share whether or not she has heard back from Mayor Kincannon on the great feedback that you all provided about the closing the block of Gay Street.
I did. That's under new business.
I didn't mean to steal anybody's thunder. Sorry.
You're not stealing my thunder. You're just sharing it.
This is Simmons. Stay in your lane, Cook.
Well, I think we're on to new business anyway, so it makes for a good segue. Go ahead, Zubak.
Thank you very much. So first topic is the Codi Social. Our first Codi Social was held on November 3rd at Aubrey's Paper Mill location. Out of the 23 total Codi members and their families, so 17 members and 6 family, that RSVP'd they would be attending, 10 were absent, which included 8 members and 2 family members. Because of attendance, if we do another Codi social next year, we will still be holding a regular Codi meeting that month. Next new business is vehicle-free Gay Street. Mayor Kincannon specifically asked Codi for feedback on this initiative to find out whether it makes things better, worse, or the same for the Knoxville disability community. The mayor rarely comes to Codi with specific requests, so providing this feedback is important not only to honor that request, but for the disability community if this initiative moves forward to future dates or future locations. Members that have visited and provided feedback include Hillary Brooks, Nancy Carter, Monica Shimon-Orr, Joel Simmons, and Nancy Welch. Thank you to all of you. The last weekend to visit will be Friday, December 15th and Saturday, December 16th. If you're able to visit and provide feedback, please send your comments to me no later than December 18th, as our mayor will be anticipating an email with those shortly after. Mayor Kincannon did report back on the comments from those members that have visited that I've already sent, and let me know she has also reached out to and received feedback from the Mayor's Youth Council, downtown business owners and residents, and other groups such as Bike Walk Knoxville. She did say that she appreciated all of the comments and the time spent from members going down there to look at this, and also believes that some of the comments will be mitigated if this does continue in the future. Comments such as the types of businesses that were open, because if it is going to continue, then that should progress naturally and those businesses should be open later. We might get additional businesses in. Next new business is t-shirts. I still have t-shirts in my office for the following members: Alexander, Kane, Carter, Childress, Matheson, Spangler, and Ziegler. Please make arrangements to pick up your order from the City County building.
Excellent. Thank you, Zubak. At this time, I'm going to open the, hold on, Cook.
I was just gonna say, I know Spangler lives like between the city county building and my house. So Spangler, for you, I don't mind to drop it off because that'd just be easy. And if anybody does pick something up from the city county building, if you've not done it before, me sure I would be happy to meet you outside so that you don't have to attempt to park.
So long as it's a Monday or a Wednesday.
Yes, or a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday for me.
Excellent. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open for announcements or also the public forum. So if we have any members of the public here, which I don't think we do, does anybody have any announcements? Okay, Zubek.
I just wanted to say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone if I don't see you or hear you before then.
Awesome.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, happy holidays to everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Anybody got anything else before we go? All right. It is 4:27 and we are adjourned. Have a great month, guys.
Thank you all.
Everybody.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Mall.